The Monon High Bridge rises 63 feet above Deer Creek in the small town of Delphi, Indiana. It is an abandoned railroad bridge built in 1891, 900 feet of rusted steel and rotting wood, stretching across the wilderness like the skeleton of some forgotten giant. On February 13, 2017, it was just another Monday afternoon, unseasonably warm for late winter, 40 degrees, the snow melting into gray slush along the county roads. Abby Williams was 13 years old, auburn hair, freckles across her nose, wearing her favorite purple jacket. She had the kind of laugh that filled the room. Libby German was 14, long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, always holding her phone, always filming, always capturing life as it happened. They were best friends, the kind of friends who finished each other's sentences, who shared secrets no one else knew, who planned their futures together even though they were barely teenagers. That Monday was a day off from school, a perfect afternoon for an adventure. They asked Libby's older sister to drop them off near the trails, near the bridge, near the place where their story would end. No one thought anything of it. It was Delphi, population 3,000, everyone knew everyone. Crime didn't happen here, not real crime. Not the kind that makes national headlines, not the kind that destroys families and haunts a town forever. But evil doesn't need a big city. Evil doesn't need darkness. Sometimes evil just needs an abandoned bridge, two unsuspecting girls, and a man who has been waiting. This is the Delphi murders, and this is the story of Richard Allen, the CVS worker who crossed that bridge and changed everything. Stay with us, because what happened on that trail is only the beginning. The trail that February afternoon was damp, brown leaves thick underfoot, patches of dirty snow clinging to the shadows. The air smelled of wet earth and melting ice, that peculiar Midwest winter scent that promises spring but never quite delivers. Abby and Libby walked side by side, talking, laughing, their breath visible in short white clouds. Libby held her phone up, filming everything. The bare trees, the gray rocks, the fog rising from Deer Creek like smoke from a dying fire. They reached the Monon High Bridge around 2:15. The massive structure loomed before them. Rusted rails, wooden ties spaced 2 feet apart, gaps showing the creek 63 feet below. It was dangerous. It was thrilling. It was exactly the kind of place two teenage girls would explore on a day off from school. Libby filmed Abby walking carefully across the ties, arms out for balance, purple jacket bright against the gray steel and brown wood. They reached the center rail, took photos, laughed. The wind whipped through their hair. For a few perfect minutes, they were just two friends having an adventure. But then, Libby's camera caught something else. At the far end of the bridge, a figure appeared. A man, dressed in dark clothing, hood up, or maybe a cap, hard to tell. He walked toward them, slowly, deliberately, not running, not threatening, just walking. Abby and Libby didn't panic, not at first. This was Delphi. People hiked here. Maybe he was just another explorer, but something felt wrong. The way he moved, the way he didn't look at them but seemed to be watching them anyway. The way the bridge, 900 feet long with no escape routes, suddenly felt like a trap. They turned, started walking back, faster now, not running, but faster. Libby kept filming. Her phone captured the man following, his steps on the wood, his shadow in the fog. Then the audio, that audio. Down the hill. 2 words, gravelly, commanding, the voice of a man who expected to be obeyed. When Libby's sister came to pick them up at 3:30, they weren't there. She called their families, called the police. By nightfall, the entire town was searching. Flashlights cutting through fog, voices calling their names into the darkness. Abby's mother stood at the trail entrance, dark blue coat, auburn hair like her daughter's, phone clutched in her hand. Libby's grandmother stood beside her, tan cardigan, eyes fixed on the forest, willing the girls to walk out of the trees. But the trees were silent. The bridge was silent. The creek flowed on. And somewhere in the darkness, a man walked away. A man who had been planning this. A man who knew these trails. A man who lived among them, while carrying a secret that would take 5 years to uncover. The search would continue through the night, through the next day, through the next week. But the girls were already gone. What remained was only the waiting, the hoping, the slow, crushing realization that sometimes the worst thing you can imagine is exactly what happened. This was not a disappearance. This was not a runaway. This was something far darker. Something that would test the limits of a small town's faith and a detective's resolve. And it would take 5 long years before anyone would even know where to look. But the trail held clues, the bridge held witnesses, and Libby's phone held the key. The last video on Libby German's phone is only 43 seconds long, but those 43 seconds would become the most important evidence in the case. It shows two girls on a bridge, laughing, carefree. Then, a figure in the distance, walking toward them. The camera shakes as Libby turns. The audio captures their footsteps, quickening. The wind in the bare branches, the creaking of the old railroad ties. And then, that voice, down the hill, gravelly, calm, terrifying in its ordinariness. The voice of a man who has done this before, or who has rehearsed it, who knows exactly what he wants and exactly how to get it. The phone drops, the screen goes black, but the audio continues, scuffling, a sharp intake of breath, then silence, absolute silence. Detective Todd Leonard arrived at the scene at 7 a.m. on February 14th, Valentine's Day. The fog was still thick, clinging to the bare branches like gauze. The creek rushed below, cold and clear over brownstones. The bridge stood silent, a rusted sentinel over the forest. Leonard was in his late 40s, stocky build, tan trench coat, blue shirt, the kind of detective who had seen too much but refused to look away. He had worked homicides for 15 years, but nothing prepared him for this. Two girls, a small town, a bridge that should have been safe. The search team spread through the forest, K9 units, volunteers, police officers in Navy uniforms. German shepherds sniffed the ground. Flashlights swept across the brown leaves and gray rocks. The fog muffled their voices, made everything feel unreal, like searching through a dream. They found the first evidence markers by noon. A purple jacket fiber, a tie-dye fabric swatch, a friendship bracelet, the multicolored threads still bright against the mud. Each discovery brought hope and dread in equal measure. Hope that they were close. Dread that they already knew what they would find. The K9 units alerted near a large oak tree, deep in the private property, beyond the broken fence. The dogs sat, stiff, tails rigid, staring at the ground as if they could see something the humans couldn't. Leonard walked to the spot. The mud was disturbed, the leaves pushed aside, the underbrush broken. He knelt, studied the ground, and then he saw it. A single brass bullet casing, partially buried in the mud, tarnished green-brown. A .40 caliber shell that had been ejected from a gun and left behind like a calling card. Leonard picked it up with gloved hands, held it to the light. Small, metallic, quiet, but it spoke louder than any witness. It said, someone was here, someone fired a weapon, someone planned this. He placed it in an evidence bag, sealed it, and knew this casing would either break the case or haunt him forever. The search continued. The fog lifted. The sun tried to break through the overcast, failed, and retreated behind the gray. By dusk, the community had gathered at the church. A red brick, white steeple, American flag at half-staff. Candles were lit, prayers were whispered. Photos of two smiling girls were held up like talismans against the darkness, but prayers wouldn't bring them back. And the man who took them was still out there, walking the same streets, shopping at the same stores, living in the same neighborhood, looking completely normal, because the most terrifying monsters are the ones who look exactly like us. The Delphi murders became a national obsession. The FBI joined the investigation. The tip line rang day and night, thousands of calls, hundreds of suspects. Every drifter, every ex-con, every strange man in a 3-state radius was questioned, cleared, or filed away in boxes that grew heavier with each passing month. Detective Leonard spent 5 years in a rented office, walls covered with corkboards, photos of Abby and Libby pinned beside maps of Deer Creek, red string connecting locations, theories, dead ends. The bullet casing sat in an evidence locker, waiting for a match that never came. The case spawned theories, the Odinist theory, suggesting a Norse pagan cult had sacrificed the girls on the full moon. The Kegan-Klein theory, involving a social media predator who had communicated with Libby before her death. The man on the bridge became a ghost, a silhouette in a police sketch that was plastered on billboards across Indiana. Have you seen this man? The sketch showed a figure in a dark jacket, hood up, face generic, indistinguishable. It could have been anyone, and in a way, it was. Leonard walked the bridge every year on the anniversary. Same careful steps on the rotting ties, same view of the creek 63 feet below, same wind in the bare branches. He would stand at the center rail, look down at the water, and wonder who else had stood there. Who else had looked down? Who else had carried a secret across those 900 feet of rusted steel? The community refused to forget. Annual memorials at the church, purple and blue ribbons on the water tower, the Find the Girl signs that became Remember the Girl signs. A limestone monument in the town square, names engraved in gold, an eternal flame burning day and night. But the man who did it was not in a cult, was not a drifter, was not a stranger from another state. He was Richard Allen, 50 years old, CVS worker, married, no criminal record. A man who lived in a beige ranch house on a quiet street, who drove a white Ford Focus, who wore wire-rimmed glasses and a green puffer jacket with a CVS logo on the chest. A man who looked so completely normal that no one ever thought to look at him. Alan had worked at the Delphi CVS for years. He filled prescriptions, stocked shelves, helped customers find cough medicine and bandages. He was polite, quiet, slightly hunched shoulders, a shuffling gait, the kind of man you would forget 5 minutes after meeting him. But Leonard had finally found the connection. The unspent bullet casing from the scene matched ballistics to a 6-hour P226, registered to Richard Allen. The same gun he kept in his garage, beside his tools and his rope and his box cutters. The same gun he had fired on that bridge, or near that creek, 5 years earlier. Leonard stared at the surveillance photo. Allen in his green jacket, wire-rimmed glasses, black cap pulled low, walking through the CVS parking lot like any other customer, any other worker, any other neighbor, but he wasn't any of those things. He was the man on the bridge, the man in the audio, the man who said "down the hill" in that gravelly voice and led 2 girls to their deaths. The evidence was there, the ballistics matched, the timeline fit, but the motive was still missing, and without understanding why. Leonard knew the case would never feel complete, but first, they had to arrest him. And that meant entering the most dangerous place of all, the suburban home of a man who had hidden in plain sight for 5 years. Richard Allen lived at 5730 Whiteman Drive, a beige ranch house with dark brown shutters and an American flag by the door. He had lived there for years, mowed his lawn, washed his car, paid his taxes, voted in local elections. He was invisible, the perfect camouflage for evil. His white Ford Focus sat in the driveway, a 2006 model, dirty, salt-stained from Indiana winters, a cracked windshield on the passenger side. The car had been to the bridge, the tires had crushed the gravel on the Ocean Parkway shoulder, the seats had carried his weight as he planned, waited. Executed. Allen woke every morning at 6, scrambled eggs, bacon, coffee, read the local paper, drove to CVS, filled prescriptions, came home, watched television, went to bed. A routine so boring, so relentlessly ordinary that it became its own defense. No one suspected the quiet man in the green jacket. No one suspected the CVS worker with the wire-rimmed glasses and the slight hunch. But Leonard had studied him, had watched surveillance footage from the store parking lot, had noted the way Allen walked, a shuffling gait, shoulders hunched, avoiding eye contact, the same walk captured on Libby German's phone, the same build, the same jacket. Allen had returned to the bridge after the murders. Leonard was certain of it. He had walked those same rotting ties, had stood at the center rail, had looked down at the creek where 2 girls had taken their last breath. Maybe he went back to remember, maybe to check for evidence, maybe to relive the moment. The garage told another story, tools arranged with obsessive precision, a workbench cluttered with hardware, rope in a drawer. 10. Agricultural grade, the same type found at the scene. A box cutter with a retractable blade, cleaning supplies for a gun that was never supposed to be found. And then there was the bedroom, wood paneling from the 70s, a floral comforter, a nightstand with pill bottles and an alarm clock, a closet with green puffer jackets and khaki cargo pants and brown hiking boots with mud on the soles, mud from the trail, mud from the creek bank, mud from the place where 2 girls died. And Alan sat in his recliner every evening, beer in hand. Television glowing, wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the screen, his wife in the kitchen, his life unfolding in suburban normalcy, while 2 families across town sat in darkened rooms, staring at photos of daughters who would never come home. And in Ding Bon, and in dead photons, how does he kill? And then wash dishes? How does he destroy lives? And then fill prescriptions for allergy medication? How does he carry the memory of 2 girls' last moments while helping a customer find the right toothpaste? These were the questions that haunted Leonard, the questions that had no answers. The questions that made him sit in his command center at 2 in the morning, staring at a surveillance photo of a man in a green jacket, wondering if evil had a face at all, or if it was just ordinary. But the evidence didn't care about motive. The evidence didn't care about understanding. The evidence just spoke, and what it said was clear. Richard Allen was the man on the bridge, and it was time to prove it. October 13th, 2022. 5 years, 8 months, and 1 day after Abby Williams and Libby German walked onto that bridge. The sun had not yet risen over Delphi. Fog clung to the fields. The town was still asleep, but 3 Indiana State Police cruisers moved silently through the streets. No lights, no sirens, just the quiet approach of justice. They parked outside 5730 Whiteman Drive. The beige ranch house, the American flag, the white Ford Focus in the driveway. The same house that had hidden a killer for 2024 days. Detective Leonard stood at the back of the group, Tan trench coat, blue shirt, gold badge. He had waited 5 years for this moment. He had imagined it 1,000 times, but now that it was here, it felt surreal, like watching a movie he had already seen, but couldn't quite believe was real. The lead officer knocked on the dark green front door. 3 sharp raps, then silence. The porch light was off. The storm door was closed. Inside, a dog barked once, then stopped. The door opened slowly. Richard Allen stood in the doorway, wearing a gray t-shirt and boxer shorts, bare feet, wire-rimmed glasses, brown beard, messy from sleep, confused. Then, recognition. Not surprise, not fear, just recognition. As if he had been expecting this knock for 5 years. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He didn't even ask why. He just nodded, stepped back, and let them in. The search took hours. Officers in blue gloves moved through every room. The garage, the bedroom, the closet. They photographed the green puffer jackets, the brown hiking boots, the mud on the soles. They opened drawers, examined boxes, collected evidence bags, went to the garage. They found a 6-hour P226, black, semi-automatic, registered to Allen, in a box under the workbench. Beside ammunition, green cardboard, Federal Premium, the same brand as the casing found at the scene. The white Ford Focus was stowed away. Its tires would be examined. Its interior would be vacuumed for fibers. Its trunk would be searched for anything that might connect Allen to the bridge, to the creek, to the girls. Allen was taken to the Carroll County Courthouse, an 1880s Victorian building with red brick and a clock tower. He was processed, fingerprinted, photographed. The mugshot showed a round face, thinning brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses, a brown beard trimmed shorter now, blank eyes, no expression. They put him in an orange jumpsuit, white socks, orange slip-on sandals. The gold wedding band was removed from his finger, leaving a pale circle where it had been for years. He sat in an interrogation room, gray cinder block walls, metal table, one-way mirror, and waited. Leonard entered, sat across from him, placed a file on the table, photos of the bridge, the creek, the bullet casing, the surveillance stills. He slid one photo across the metal surface. Allen in his green jacket, walking through the CVS parking lot. "We know you were there, Richard. We have the video. We have the bullet. We have your car." Allen looked at the photo, picked it up, studied his own face, then placed it back down. He adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and said nothing. Leonard leaned forward, blue eyes intense, 5 years of exhaustion and determination in every line of his face. "Why?" Allen looked at the one-way mirror, then down at his hands, then back at Leonard, and still, he said nothing. The interrogation would continue for hours, but Richard Allen would never explain himself, never confess, never offer a reason. The man who had sat down the hill on that bridge had nothing left to say, and that silence would become the final mystery of the Delphi murders. The evidence against Richard Allen was not dramatic. It was not cinematic. It was small, quiet, and relentless, like the man himself. The bullet casing found at the scene, a .40 caliber brass shell, partially buried in mud near a large oak tree, was the key. State Police ballistics technicians placed it under a comparison microscope, alongside a test-fire casing from Allen's 6-hour P226. The striations matched. The microscopic grooves aligned at 6 points. The probability of a random match was 1 in billions. The gun was registered to Allen, purchased legally, kept in his garage, cleaned with obsessive care. But one bullet had been fired on February 13th, 2017. One casing had been ejected, and that casing had waited in the mud for 5 years, until science could speak for the dead. Libby German's phone held the second key. 43 seconds of video. Grainy, shaky. 2 girls on a bridge. Then a figure in dark clothing, walking toward them. The audio captured that voice. Down the hill, gravelly and calm. Forensic audio experts enhanced the recording, isolated the voice, compared it to Allen's speech patterns. The match was not definitive, but it was compelling. The surveillance footage from the CVS parking lot showed Allen in his green puffer jacket, wire-rimmed glasses, black cap pulled low, the same jacket, the same build, the same gait, a man who looked completely normal, until you saw him through the lens of what he had done. Detectives found Allen's brown hiking boots in his closet, mud on the soles. The tread pattern matched prints found near the creek bank. They found his green jacket. Fibers matched evidence collected from the scene. They found rope in his garage drawer, 10, agricultural grade, consistent with ligature marks. Each piece of evidence was small. A fiber, a boot print, a bullet casing, a grainy video frame. But together, they formed a chain that led from a beige ranch house to a rusted bridge, to a muddy creek bank, and finally, to a courtroom. Leonard arranged the evidence on his desk like a wheel. The surveillance photo of Allen at the center, the bridge photo, the creek photo, the car photo, the ballistics report, the bullet comparison, all connected by red string, all pointing to one man. The evidence doesn't lie, Leonard said, staring at the configuration, coffee cold in his hand. But it doesn't explain why. And that was the truth that would haunt the case forever. They knew who, they knew how, they knew where, but they would never truly know why. Because Richard Allen would never tell them. The trial would begin in 2024, 5 years after the murders, 7 years after the girls walked onto that bridge. The evidence would be presented, the jury would listen, and the small town would finally face the man who had shattered their illusion of safety. But understanding the evidence and understanding the evil are two very different things. The Carroll County Courthouse had stood since 1885. Red brick, white limestone trim, a clock tower that chimed on the hour. Inside, dark oak paneling, brass chandeliers, high arched windows that let in gray daylight. It was a room built for justice, and on trial day, it would finally deliver it. The gallery was packed, 6 rows of wooden pews, red velvet cushions, family members in the front row, Abby's mother in her dark blue coat, Libby's grandmother in her tan cardigan, both holding hands, both staring at the defense table where Richard Allen sat in an orange jumpsuit. The prosecution presented the evidence methodically: the bullet casing, the ballistics match, the surveillance footage, the audio recording, the boot prints, the fibers, each item placed on the table. Each item explained, each item connecting Allen to the bridge, to the creek, to the girls. Abby's mother took the stand. Her voice broke as she described the last morning. The purple jacket, the excitement, the promise to be home by dinner. She looked at Allen only once, and the look she gave him was not hatred. It was a question, a single devastating word that hung in the air without being spoken. Why? Allen sat through it all in his orange jumpsuit, wire-rimmed glasses, brown beard trimmed short, hands cuffed on the table. He looked at the witnesses, looked at the jury, looked at the wall. His expression never changed. Blank, unreadable, enigmatic. The defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that the ballistics match, while compelling, did not prove Allen fired the weapon at the scene, that the audio recording was too grainy for positive identification, that a quiet CVS worker with no criminal record could not be a killer. But the jury listened. They leaned forward during the ballistics presentation. They studied the bullet comparison photos with red alignment lines. They heard Abby's mother's voice crack. They saw the surveillance footage of Allen in his green jacket, walking through the parking lot like any other customer, any other neighbor, any other monster hiding in plain sight. After deliberation, the verdict came: guilty. The word echoed through the historic courtroom. Abby's mother cried, relief and grief mixing in equal measure. The grandmother held her. The community exhaled. 5 years of waiting, 5 years of wondering, 5 years of fearing that the man who destroyed their town would never be found. But he was found, he was tried, he was convicted. Richard Allen was led out in his orange jumpsuit, shuffling gait, shoulders hunched, wire-rimmed glasses catching the fluorescent light. He never spoke, never looked back, never offered an explanation. The judge's gavel fell. Justice was served. But justice is not healing, and a verdict does not bring back 2 girls who should have grown up to become women, mothers, friends, storytellers. The trial was over, but the story was not, because a town still grieved, a bridge still stood, and 2 lights still glowed in the darkness, refusing to be extinguished. Today, the Monon High Bridge is sealed. Chain link fence, padlocks, warning signs. The structure decays slowly, rust eating the steel, rot consuming the wood. Nature reclaims what man abandoned. The creek flows on, clear water over brown stones, white water over rocks, indifferent, eternal. At the trail entrance, a granite bench bears their names: Abby Williams and Libby German, forever brave. Fresh flowers appear weekly, purple and blue ribbons flutter in the wind. Solar lights glow at dusk, small white beacons against the darkness. The Delphi community continues. The CVS still fills prescriptions. The Dairy Delight still serves burgers. The library still lends books. The train still crosses Main Street. Life goes on, because it must, but 2 names are engraved in limestone now. 2 faces smile from laminated photos on an oak tree. 2 solar lights glow every night, refusing to let the darkness win. Detective Leonard still visits the trail every year. He sits on the granite bench, drinks coffee, watches the fog rise from the creek. He knows the case is closed. He knows the verdict is just. But he also knows that some questions have no answers, that some wounds never fully heal, that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, evil looks like a man in wire-rimmed glasses and a green jacket. Sometimes evil fills prescriptions, and washes cars, and scrambles eggs on Saturday mornings. Sometimes evil lives next door, and you never know, until it's too late. Abby Williams was 13. Libby German was 14. They walked onto a bridge on a warm February afternoon, and they never walked off. But they left something behind. A video, a voice, a 43-second testament to courage, to friendship, to the human instinct to document even the darkest moments. Libby German kept filming when most would have dropped the phone. She captured the face of evil. She preserved the evidence that would eventually convict him. She was 14 years old, and she was braver than most adults will ever be. The Monon High Bridge still stands, rusted, sealed, forgotten by most, but not by the people of Delphi, not by the families who lost their daughters, not by the detective who spent 5 years searching for a killer who was hiding in plain sight. The bridge is silent now. The creek flows on. The fog rises and falls with the seasons, but two lights glow every night, small and white and persistent, reminding anyone who passes that love outlasts evil, that memory outlasts death, that two girls who should have lived forever will live forever in the hearts of a town that refuses to forget them. This has been the Delphi Murders. Rest in peace, Abby. Rest in peace, Libby. You are remembered. You are missed. You are forever brave. Thank you for watching. If you have any information about unsolved cases in your community, contact your local authorities. You never know which small detail might be the key. Stay safe, stay aware, and never forget that courage comes in all forms. Goodbye.